It took me 6 months of begging my wife, Jojaro, before she finally agreed to accompany me to a football match. I waited at the airport until the boarding announcement, but Jojaro was nowhere to be seen. I made countless calls, all unanswered, only to see Song Zhang post on his social media. The caption read, "Thanks to someone who, after pulling 2 all-nighters, still came with me to watch the esports competition." The accompanying picture showed him and Jojaro embracing and making victory signs at the esports event. Without hesitation, I turned off my phone and went to check in for my flight. This match was the farewell game of my favorite player. It was a fitting tribute to my vanished love. Only after landing back home did I turn my phone back on. 5 days, and not a single call from Jojaro. Stepping out of the airport, I found it was pouring rain. I waited for a long time, but couldn't get a car. Just then, Jojaro's call came in. Her voice was cold on the other end. "Where are you? Come pick up Zhang and me from the airport." I didn't speak. Previously, I would have angrily questioned her about where she had been with Song Zhang, but now I had no desire to talk to her at all. Jojaro sounded annoyed. "Yi Muin, have you gone mute?" "I'm at the airport entrance." Jojaro, unsurprisingly, asked what I was doing there. "Just got back from watching the match." She paused for a few seconds, seemingly remembering that she had promised to go with me. Before departure, I had seen Jojaro's schedule in the hospital's internal group, and my heart skipped a beat. I just hadn't expected that the time off she had specifically arranged was to watch an esport competition with Song Zhang. "Where are you? We'll come find you." I casually gave my location and hung up. Before Jojaro arrived, the ride I had booked by paying extra had also been accepted. They arrived at the same time as the ride-hailing car. Jojaro rushed ahead of me and pulled Song Zhang into the car. "Zhang is a bit tired. I'll take him home first and come back for you later." Before the car drove off, Song Zhang rolled down the window, his voice dripping with smugness. "Muin, thanks for booking the car." I looked at him, my heart utterly calm. Jojaro frowned slightly. "Don't thank him for such a small thing. Hurry up and close the window, or the rain will come in and you'll start complaining again." Although her words were scolding, her action of pulling him back was gentle. The car could have easily fit 3 people, but there was no room for me in Jojaro and Song Zhang's world. I stood there drenched and alone, dragging my suitcase at the airport entrance. Slowly, I became the only one left. When the rain stopped, Jojaro didn't contact me. I only saw her post on social media. Accompanied a kid to watch a competition, and fulfilled his wish of playing in H country for a few days. Below were photos they had taken over the past 5 days. As I scrolled to the last one, my finger paused. The image showed Song Zhang and Jojaro wearing the couple's pajamas I had bought. I had coaxed her for a long time before, but she had refused to wear them, let alone take a picture and post it. In 7 years of marriage, she had never publicly acknowledged my existence. Now, she posted a full 9-grid photo set of someone else. Something I had longed for 7 years. Someone else obtained effortlessly. The iceberg I had spent 7 years trying to melt had now melted for another. I turned off my phone and smiled with relief. Then, I dragged my suitcase and checked into a nearby budget hotel. Going back now would only be asking for trouble. After checking into the hotel, I washed up and went straight to bed. The next morning, I got up early and rushed from the hotel to the hospital for work. The hospital I work at is highly renowned within the province. Jojaro is a major shareholder of the hospital, while I'm just the deputy director of the neurology department. I had barely sat down and hadn't even had a sip of water when I was called to the emergency room for a joint consultation. Just as I reached the entrance of the emergency room, I bumped into Jojaro. The pregnant woman who had been brought in after a car accident was seriously injured, requiring simultaneous surgery from both the obstetrics and neurosurgery departments. When it came to work, both Jojaro and I tacitly set aside our personal feelings, striving to do our best. This was probably the only thing we had in common. When the surgery was successfully completed, the operating room nurse joked, "Director Zhou and Director Yi are truly a match made in heaven. Every time you cooperate on a surgery, there's an indescribable chemistry. It's a waste if you're not together." Jojaro's face darkened when she heard this. Before she could deny it, I preemptively said, "Don't talk nonsense. I'm just an ordinary doctor. I'm not good enough for Director Zhou." No one at the hospital knew about my relationship with Jojiro because she said she didn't like mixing business with personal matters. In the past, whenever someone said that Jojiro and I were a perfect match, I would secretly rejoice, feeling that even though we weren't public, we were seen as a couple in others' eyes. Now, however, I was a little tired of others saying this, and couldn't help but proactively distance myself from Jojiro. The operating room nurse asked me what kind of girlfriend I was looking for. The first image that popped in my mind was still Jojiro. I pretended to think for a moment before saying, "I love nothing but money and work." This sentence made the nurse laugh so hard she couldn't stand up straight. Jojiro suddenly spoke from behind me. "Director Yi, I have a few questions about that surgery I'd like to discuss with you." The operating room nurse tactfully said goodbye to us and quickly left. I sat in Jojiro's office and asked her what questions she wanted to discuss. Jojiro abruptly said, "Yi Muin, where did you go last night? Staying out all night? You know I have a thing about cleanliness if I find out you." I curved my lips into a smile and interrupted her. "Director Zhou, it's working hours now, not appropriate for personal matters." Once, I just asked Jojiro what she wanted to eat for dinner during working hours. She immediately looked around to make sure no one was there, and then sternly reprimanded me for discussing personal matters during working hours. After that, I never spoke to her about anything personal at the hospital again. Jojiro was caught off guard by her own words. After a long pause, she sullenly told me to leave. Before closing the door, I deliberately smiled at her. "Director Zhou, could you please ask my wife if it was appropriate for me to go home in that situation last night?" When Jojiro heard this, a flicker of guilt flashed across her face. I didn't expect her to say anything, so I just closed the door and left. Just before the end of my shift, I received a message from Jojiro, a screenshot of 2 movie tickets. I knew this was her way of making amends. I replied to the lawyer's last message, confirmed that there was nothing else going on in the department, and then left work to go to the appointment. Wanted to take this opportunity to talk to Jojiro about the divorce. As I walked out of the hospital, I saw Song Zhang driving Jojiro's car, waiting for her at the hospital entrance. Jojiro, right in front of me, got into Song Zhang's car and drove off. Soon after, I received a message from Jojiro. It was just about how Song Zhang needed her help with something, and she asked me to wait for her at the entrance of the cinema. I didn't wait, and instead headed towards a law firm. After I discussed the divorce with my lawyer, I rushed to the cinema entrance to pick up the tickets and enter. The movies Jojiro chose were never the ones I liked. Previously, to accommodate her, I would always sit through the entire film. But this time, I left the screening room halfway through. I booked another ticket online for a sci-fi movie. After watching the movie, I even went for some grilled skewers before heading home. I used to avoid this kind of junk food because Jojiro said she didn't like it. I also followed her preferences to change myself. But on Song Zhang's social media, Jojiro had accompanied him to eat countless junk foods. I had wholeheartedly devoted 7 years to her, but she still didn't have me in her heart. Then, there was no other option for us but divorce. After supper, I bought another bottle of beer and drank it by the river until almost midnight before heading home. Pushing open the door, I was surprised to see Jojiro sitting in the living room. In recent years, she had often been busy until late at night because of Song Zhang, sometimes even not coming home at all. Our double-doctor family already meant we spent little time together. When we first got married, Jojiro had just taken over the hospital. Every day, she was either working overtime at the hospital or attending social events. I could only use my spare time to cook her various medicinal meals to nourish her body. But these actions are described by Jojiro as those of a male nanny, nagging and annoying her to death. After the hospital stabilized, Song Zhang appeared. The reason for her busyness shifted from the hospital to Song Zhang. I patted my head to clear my mind. Looking up, I saw Jojiro staring at me coldly. "Yi Muyuan, you actually drank alcohol. Don't you know I hate the smell of alcohol?" I blinked and said nothing, because I knew that all her dislikes and hates were dependent on the person. When Song Zhang was drunk, Jojiro could take care of him personally. But with me, it was her most hated smell of alcohol. Differential treatment was Jojiro's specialty, so it would be better not to live together anymore. Jojiro was a little surprised to see me not speaking. In the past, Whenever she stood me up because of Song Xiang, I would definitely question her angrily, demanding an explanation. Just as I was about to turn and go wash up, Jojaro suddenly asked me if I knew what day it was. I glanced at the date on my phone and realized that yesterday was my birthday. The reason I said yesterday was because it was already past midnight. Every year, a week before my birthday, I would subtly remind Jojaro that my birthday was coming up. If she was in a good mood, she would prepare a gift for me. If she was in a bad mood, she would just impatiently say, "What's the big deal about a birthday?" Her actively bringing up my birthday like this was a first since we got married. The alcohol was getting to my head, and after yawning, I lazily said, "It's just a birthday, nothing." Before I could finish, Jojaro impatiently threw a gift box at me, her tone a little guilty. "I specially prepared this for you. See if you like it." If Jojaro remembering my birthday surprised me, then her actively preparing a gift for me was as surprising as the sun rising from the west. In the past, I would have thanked her profusely and then taken 360-degree photos of this gift and posted them on all social media platforms. I picked up the gift box from the floor, casually placed it on the dining table beside me, and said casually, "Thank you. You shouldn't have. I like it very much." My attitude tonight was incomprehensible to Jojaro, and she began to get a little angry. "I was wrong to stand you up today, but I've already apologized to you, and you still have this attitude. Xiang's sister entrusted her to me before she died, so I must be responsible to the end." I lowered my head and replied to messages, not letting her off the hook. "Yes, I know you're responsible. After all, you two spent a wonderful 5 days in each country as a single man and woman." My words made a trace of guilt flash across Jojaro's face, but she quickly frowned, her entire face darkening like ink. This matter was her fault, so she just stared at me coldly. In the past, seeing her expression, I would have shown weakness and admitted my fault. Over time, Jojaro felt that as long as she kept a straight face, I would unconditionally obey. But this time, I just lowered my head and focused on replying to the lawyer's messages. Divorce was my top priority now. Jojaro hadn't spoken since she came in, so she took the initiative to come over and ask me what I was looking at. I turned off my phone and said casually, "Just consulting someone about some things. I drank alcohol. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." After saying that, I ignored Jojaro's expression and closed the door of the guest room. I slept soundly through the night. Early the next morning, after receiving the divorce papers from my lawyer, I immediately messaged Jojaro, asking her to come home early as I had something important to discuss. She replied shortly after, saying she understood. But by 10 o'clock at night, she still hadn't returned. I wasn't surprised. I started packing my belongings. It wasn't until midnight that Jojaro finally pushed open the door, looking utterly content. She wasn't surprised to see me waiting in the living room. After all, this was something I used to do often. Jojaro, as usual, began to explain. Xiang's cat had kittens. I went to help. Hearing this familiar excuse, I couldn't help but sneer. Just last month, she had used the same reason to stay overnight at Song Xiang's place. We had a huge fight about it then. But this time, I didn't question her further and went straight to the point. "Yeah, you should help. Sit down. I have something to tell you." Jojaro sat down beside me, asking dismissively what it was. Catching the scent of lavender on her, I sneezed several times in a row. I always sneezed uncontrollably at this particular scent, and within our circle of friends, I had only ever smelled it on Song Xiang. Jojaro, seeing me sneeze, flashed a hint of guilt, but quickly found an excuse, saying the hospital had switched to a new body wash. I lowered my gaze, hiding the sarcasm in my eyes, and without further questioning, I took the divorce papers out of my bag. "Take a look. If there are no issues, sign it. Let's not torture each other anymore." I checked the almanac today. It's an auspicious day for signing divorce papers. Jojaro looked at the divorce papers on the table, her face as dark as ink. "What do you mean by this? You want a divorce?" The look in her eyes was full of confusion. She couldn't understand how I, who loved her so much, would suddenly bring up divorce. "Just because I broke our appointment, you're throwing a tantrum and want a divorce? Do you think you're still 18? You're at an age where you've lost the right to choose." Seeing Jojaro's furious and exasperated expression, I felt utterly weary. She was messing around with other men while trying to maintain her image of noble aloofness. As you said, I'm not 18 anymore, and I don't have the leisure to play games with you. I'm serious. As for the division of property, I haven't taken a single penny from you, I said, pushing the divorce papers towards her. Jojuro picked up the divorce papers with a look of suspicion, and her expression grew heavier with each page she turned. In the end, she threw the papers on the ground and said through gritted teeth, "Absolutely ridiculous." I frowned, somewhat puzzled. The terms in the divorce papers absolutely protected her rights, so why was she still angry? I can't think of a single reason why you would initiate a divorce. What is it? I looked at her calmly and said lightly, "I don't love you anymore. That's the reason." Jojuro seemed to have heard the biggest joke, and she laughed out loud without restraint. "Yumiyuin, are you kidding me? Everyone knows you value me more than your own life, and now you suddenly say you don't love me?" So she knew how much I loved her, and that was the basis for her to Uji-dun hurt me. Jojuro pointed at the divorce papers on the ground, her eyes full of disdain. "Now you've grown up, learning to use this method to vent your emotions on me." As if that wasn't enough, she bent down and tore the divorce papers on the ground to shreds. Looking at the scraps of paper all over the floor, I wasn't angry. I looked at her expressionlessly, my tone indifferent. "I'm serious. Think about it carefully." After saying that, I headed towards the guest room. Before closing the door, I turned back to her and said, "Next time, remind your little boyfriend not to leave marks on his neck." As soon as I said this, Jojuro's face instantly turned pale. When I woke up the next day, Jojuro had already gone to the hospital. I signed the newly printed divorce papers and placed them on the desk in her study before leaving with my suitcase. I checked into a hotel near the hospital. Staring at the hotel ceiling, I couldn't help but mock myself for staying in hotels more often recently than I had in the entire past year. I opened my laptop and wrote a resignation letter with a random excuse, sending it to Jojuro's email. I thought she wouldn't see the email for at least a week, but unexpectedly, she stormed into my office that afternoon. "What's the meaning of this resignation letter?" I blinked and said directly, "The resignation letter means I'm resigning." "What else could it mean?" Jojuro said, "I want to prove it." Just as I was about to say something, Song Ziyang called. "Sister Ro, I fell home and hit my head. It hurts so much. I'm in the emergency room at your hospital." Jojuro anxiously said, "I'll be right there." Before leaving, she didn't forget to drag me along. Ziyang fell and hit his head. Go take a look at him. Arriving at the emergency room, I saw Song Zhang, who looked perfectly normal but kept moaning in pain. I immediately understood what was going on, but I still gave him a basic examination and finally said, "This gentleman is not in any serious condition." As soon as I finished speaking, Song Zhang groaned painfully, "But Sister Ro, my head hurts so much. Does Brother Muin still blame me for wearing his clothes, so he refuses to treat me?" As soon as he said this, Jojuro immediately flew into a rage, pointing her finger at my nose and shouting, "Yimuin, are you even fit to be a doctor? Ignoring a patient's pain because of a trivial matter. Our hospital doesn't need a doctor like you. Get out." I glanced at Song Zhang, who was hiding behind her with a smug look, and walked straight over to do something I had wanted to do for a long time. With the sound of slap, the two people in front of me looked at me in disbelief. Before they could react, I went back to my office to pack up my belongings. Along the way, many people in the hospital looked at me. The hospital gossip spread quickly, and many colleagues had expressions that suggested they wanted to say something but hesitated. They all thought I was Jojuro's person, but with things blowing up like this, no one dared to ask me the reason. As I walked out of the hospital with my belongings, I couldn't help but mutter, "The sound of the rain today is really nice." After returning to the hotel with the box, the first thing I did was to lie down and have a good sleep. When I woke up, I found a lot of unread messages on my phone. I glanced over them and learned that Jojuro, using the hospital's official account, had declared me morally unfit to practice medicine and fired me. For a doctor, this was a monumental disgrace. In just one day, the news spread throughout the hospitals in the province. But the outcome of this matter would not be as Jojuro wished. First, I wouldn't be looking for a job anytime soon. Because of the years of constant day and night shifts, my body had already shown warning signs, and I planned to take this time to rest and recover. Second, my long-term goal had never been the hospitals in this province, because I planned to return to my hometown. After holing up in the hotel for a few days, I packed my luggage and went straight back home. I cleaned up the house my parents had left behind. When I was in university, my original goal was to return to my hometown and find a job at a local hospital. But after meeting Zhou Jiaro, everything changed. Both my life goals and future plans became centered around her. I thought this was my life, but I never expected to separate from Zhou Jiaro. On the third day after I returned to my hometown, someone told me the follow-up to what happened that day. After I left, Zhou Jiaro found another doctor to examine Song Xiang, but the result was the same as mine. Unwilling to believe it, she gathered doctors from both the neurosurgery and brain surgery departments to examine Song Xiang together. The final result was still the same. Song Xiang's final explanation was that the place where he was hit had originally been very painful, but it had healed automatically later. Even though the outcome cleared my name, Zhou Jiaro probably held a grudge against me for hitting Song Xiang in public and decided to teach me a lesson. Looking at the final outcome, it would be a lie to say I wasn't sad. But more than that, I felt a chill in my heart. 7 years of dedication had led to this result. It was because of this that I was glad I made the decision to divorce. Leaving the wrong person allows one to return to the original path of life. After contacting my lawyer, I entrusted him with all the divorce matters. Since Zhou Jiaro refused to divorce through the normal process, I wouldn't hold back either, and I directly asked the lawyer to file for divorce. I left the hospital, left that city, and would never see Zhou Jiaro again. I didn't expect that less than half a month after I left, I would receive a call from Zhou Jiaro. Come back quickly. There's a surgery that needs you as the lead surgeon. Dean Zhou, I've already resigned. I refused without hesitation. Zhou Jiaro impatiently said, as long as I haven't approved it for a single day, you're still a doctor in my hospital. I was silent for a while in the face of her shameless statement. After a long pause, Zhou Jiaro took a step back and said that as long as I returned, she would clarify what happened that day. Hearing this, I hesitated for a moment and then agreed, because the impact of this incident was greater than I had imagined. Recently, when I was inquiring about public hospitals in my hometown, an acquaintance told me that because of that incident, the hospitals were still in a wait-and-see state. In my opinion, there was no need to ruin my future for the sake of pride. Moreover, saving lives is the duty of a doctor. The day after hanging up Zhou Jiaro's call, I packed a few clothes and went back. Seeing Zhou Jiaro and Song Xiang in the dean's office, I learned that the patient needing surgery was Song Xiang's mother. And this surgery, besides me, no one else in this hospital could perform. I looked through all the patient's information and said directly, "It can be done, but let me tell you first, the risk of blindness after the surgery is very high. And I have 2 conditions." When Zhou Jiaro heard me mention the 2 conditions, her face immediately darkened. "What conditions?" I asked. I smiled with satisfaction. "I want Song Xiang to apologize to me, and for you to sign those divorce papers." Upon hearing the demand for an apology, Song Xiang jumped up. "Why should I apologize?" I looked at him, a smile on my face. "Why do you think?" "In any case, both conditions are indispensable. Otherwise, find someone else." Only then did Zhou Jiaro believe that my talk of resignation and divorce wasn't just a fit of anger. Divorce and this can't be mixed together. Our matter and Xiang have. I impatiently cut her off, not wanting to hear her sophistry any longer. "Why can't they be discussed together? Do you think I really don't know about you two? Besides, only if you agree, I can perform that surgery wholeheartedly." Zhou Jiaro didn't expect me to bring up her affair with Song Xiang at this moment. Even though she wanted to argue, she opened and closed her mouth several times without saying a word. Finally, she just frowned and said, "When treating patients, I hope you won't bring personal emotions into it." I chuckled softly. "You know, I'm not that kind of person. Being a doctor is a noble profession dedicated to saving lives and healing the wounded. As long as I'm facing a patient, I can treat everyone equally. Even though Song Xiang ruined my family and slandered my medical ethics. This surgery is also very challenging for me. If it fails, I might face even more public pressure. It's all harm and no benefit for me. So why would I accept it?" "Zhou Jiaro, you've always known what kind of person I am. but you hurt me recklessly in pursuit of novelty. Don't deny it. You actually stopped loving me a long time ago. It's just that I'm still useful to you. That's why you keep stringing me along. I never thought I'd be able to smile one day and speak the words from the bottom of my heart. Jojaro, our feelings have long been exhausted by you, leaving only countless torments. Ending this relationship is a relief for me. Jojaro didn't expect me to say such things, and she stared at me blankly. Seeing Jojaro's reaction, Song Jiang took her hand and pleaded with her to respond. Sister Ro, please agree to it. Mom is the only family I have left. Didn't you promise my sister you'd take care of me? Seeing the wavering on Jojaro's face, my heart still ached so much that I could hardly breathe. I'll wait for your reply. With that, I stood up and left the hospital without looking back. The time it took Jojaro to make a decision was shorter than I expected. The next morning, I received the divorce papers, signed by her. I wasn't surprised by this outcome. Every time she had to choose between me and Song Jiang, I was always the one abandoned. A few sweet words from Song Jiang were enough to tip the scales in his favor. But none of this is within my consideration now, because I have already achieved the result I wanted. The same day I received the divorce papers, I went to the hospital to take over Song Jiang's mother. Because some of Song's mother's surgical indicators were not met, she needed conservative treatment for a period of time. Because she needed 24-hour close observation, I directly brought my luggage to live in the hospital dormitory. My colleagues in the department were indignant on my behalf when they saw me return, saying that Jojaro's actions were really chilling, treating a doctor in her own hospital like this for a man. I smiled and said nothing. I no longer feel sad for Jojaro, let alone chilled. During the period I was treating Song Jiang's mother, Jojaro often appeared before me. She once suggested that I move back home. It's always more convenient to live at home, and I can drive you back anytime. Without a second thought, I refused. That home has nothing to do with me anymore. The next day, Jojaro brought me a cup of milk tea. Here, your favorite flavor. Seeing the extra sugar, less ice on the label, I instinctively said, next time you buy for Song Jiang, don't bother getting one for me. The expression on Jojaro's face stiffened for a few seconds, and she said blankly, this was bought especially for you. I raised an eyebrow and said without hesitation, then there's even less need to trouble yourself, since we'll soon have nothing to do with each other. A flicker of hurt flashed across Jojaro's face. Do you have to be so heartless? Can't we be friends after the divorce? There's no need. After saying that, I handed the milk tea back to her. I could see that Jojaro wanted to salvage our relationship, but her pride prevented her from being too obvious. Our marriage had always been unilaterally maintained by me, while she had always been the recipient. But after so many years of unrequited effort, I was tired and unwilling to repeat the same mistakes. Jojaro had always known what I needed, but she never responded. In her original perception, I would never leave her. Now, with my sudden departure, she was beginning to realize that I could, in fact, live without her. After these few rejections, Jojaro probably understood my intentions. Her pride wouldn't allow her to grovel, and I wasn't one to go back on my word. This was for the best, letting things end with a measure of dignity for both of us. But Jojaro still insisted on bringing me things every day, making me wonder if she had been possessed. No matter what I said, she would still appear punctually the next day. Her every word and action made me start a question for whom she was really doing this. The day before the surgery, I suddenly approached Jojaro. I want to record the entire surgery tomorrow. She asked me why, puzzled. I chuckled softly and said, to avoid being bitten by the dog I'm trying to save. A flash of embarrassment crossed Jojaro's face. I was wrong about what happened last time. Don't hold it against me. It won't happen again. Hearing her admit her mistake, I was a little incredulous. In 7 years of marriage, this was the first time Jojaro had ever said, I was wrong. But it was too late, whether it was an apology or an attempt to reconcile. On the day of the surgery, Jojaro waited with Song Jiang at the entrance. After it was over, I took off my mask and came out, saying the surgery went smoothly, but the recovery will depend on the individual. Song Jiang anxiously asked about the possibility of blindness. I told him frankly, I can't guarantee anything because the optic nerve was severely compressed for a long time. There is a risk of temporary blindness. Hearing my words, he immediately started yelling at me. Are you doing this on purpose? You think Sister Ro is being nice to me, so you're taking revenge on me. How could someone like you be a doctor? I'm going to report you. I smiled at Zhou Jiaro and said nothing. Seeing this, Song Xiang immediately turned to Zhou Jiaro and cried, Sister Ro, how can a person like him? Enough. He's already being kind enough to save your mother. Don't say such chilling words. Zhou Jiaro's attitude surprised me. This was the first time she had defended me in front of Song Xiang. Song Xiang looked at Zhou Jiaro in disbelief. Sister Ro, you promised my sister you would take good care of me. You can't do this to me. Zhou Jiaro immediately got angry when he mentioned this. Haven't I taken good enough care of you? Because of you, Muin is divorcing me. I've already done more than enough for you. Song Xiang clung to her relentlessly, completely tearing off his previous mask of pretense. No, I love you. I want to marry you. Zhou Jiaro was frightened by his appearance and pushed him away. Don't be delusional. It's impossible between us. Song Xiang seemed to have gone mad, and he shouted hysterically, You lied to me. You said you loved me the most in bed. You took off your clothes. Slap. Zhou Jiaro slapped him across the face with all her might and said fiercely, Song Xiang, watch your words. Seeing more and more people gathering around, I left without looking back to avoid getting into trouble. That night, I saw a short video on social media about Zhou Jiaro and Song Xiang arguing outside the operating room. Netizens quickly chimed in, and the story soon topped the trending searches. I scrolled through the comments for a bit, found it uninteresting, and clicked not interested. But early the next morning, a friend told me that Song Xiang had publicly accused me, using his real name, of medical malpractice. He claimed I'd brought personal emotions into the operating room, causing his mother to go blind. Doctor-patient relations are always a sensitive topic, and this quickly caught the attention of the authorities. Relevant departments issued a statement saying they would investigate the matter thoroughly. I was just about to gather evidence to release when the hospital's official account issued a clarification addressing both this incident and the previous one. Netizens felt deceived. I didn't let it go, though, and directly called the police. As Song Xiang was being taken away, he kept insisting he was telling the truth. On the day Song's mother was moved out of the ICU, I packed my things, ready to leave. Zhou Jiaro, ignoring everyone's stares, grabbed my hand at the hospital entrance. Muin, don't leave yet. I looked at her, puzzled, but before she could speak, it dawned on me. I forgot we were supposed to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Let's go now, there's still time. Zhou Jiaro looked flustered and uneasy. Muin, is this really the end for us? Before I could answer, she continued. I was blinded by my own foolishness before. Can you forgive me? I chuckled softly. There's nothing between us to forgive. We should have ended this relationship a long time ago. Song Xiang was just the last straw. Zhou Jiaro couldn't understand. But we've been together for so many years. If it wasn't for Song Xiang, why would we divorce? I shook my head calmly and said, as long as our problems persist, even if there were no Song Xiang, there would be a Li Zhang, a Fong Zhang. Zhou Jiaro, we can't solve our own issues. Ending it is the best option. Zhou Jiaro lowered her gaze, avoiding mine, and murmured, but you promised you'd always be by my side. I gently pulled my hand away and smiled at her. But parting is the norm in life. Let's go before the Civil Affairs Bureau closes. Zhou Jiaro's hand grasped at the air, her eyes reddening. She turned her face away and walked toward the parking lot first. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I took one last, deep look at the woman I had loved for so many years. I'm running out of time. I have to go. I'll see you in 30 days then. I turned and left. Zhou Jiaro asked from behind if I needed a ride to the airport. I waved my hand, saying, no, thanks. Only when the plane landed in my hometown did I finally feel a sense of coming home. I used to be fixated on the idea that one person couldn't make a home, but I forgot that I'm the most important person in this home. Wherever I am, that's where home is. After resting for a week, I received a notice that I had passed the interview at the municipal hospital. On the second day after finalizing the divorce, Zhou Jiaro used the hospital's official account to admit to slandering me. She took responsibility and resigned, leaving the hospital to be managed by a professional team. She herself joined a team providing medical aid in Tibet. Before she left, she sent me a message. Muin, I'm sorry. For everything, both in our relationship and at the hospital. After taking over the hospital, I seemed to gradually forget my original intention as a doctor and became arrogant, which led to these consequences. I'm leaving now to find that original intention again. I wish you happiness in the future. After reading it, I deleted the message without hesitation. Some people, once separated, should not be entangled any further. We couldn't even be ordinary friends. On my first day at the municipal hospital, Song Xiang was sentenced for defamation. Now, everything had come to an end. I could finally say goodbye to the past and embrace my new future. As I put on my white coat again and stood by the patient's bed, I had no regrets about the decisions I had made. I also believed that my future would be even better. Dr. Yi, there's a patient with a cerebral hemorrhage in the emergency room. They need you for a consultation. A nurse's urgent voice pulled me back from my thoughts. I responded loudly, coming right down. As I ran toward the emergency room, I recalled the scene from our graduation when we all recited the Hippocratic Oath together. I am willing to dedicate myself to medicine, to heal the wounded and rescue the dying, to love my country, and to be loyal to the people.